What if the only way to be truly honest was to become a monster in the eyes of the world? In 1942, one of the most disturbing books ever written introduced us to a man who committed a murder on a sun-drenched beach for no reason at all. But his real crime wasn't the murder. It was what he did at his mother's funeral. This is a story about that man, about his crime, and about the relentless, oppressive sun that drove him to it. Before we dive into his story, we have to recognize why it's not just a classic, but a chilling reflection of our world right now, in 2025. We all perform. At work, on social media, even with our families. We curate our lives, post our triumphs, and show the emotions we're expected to feel. We say, "I'm fine," when we're not. We perform grief, we perform happiness. But what if someone refused to play along? This isn't just a book from 80 years ago. It's a terrifying look at our own curated lives and the social pressure to conform. And it asks one question: what happens when a man refuses to lie? To understand this world, we must first understand its creator, Albert Camus, a man who grew up a stranger in his own land of French Algeria. He was born into a world of stark contrasts: the brilliant, blinding Mediterranean sun and the deep shadows of working-class poverty. Raised in a silent home by his nearly deaf mother, his life was not one of ideas, but of physical feelings: the heat, the sea, the constant awareness of his own body. Plagued by tuberculosis, he was always conscious of life's fragility. For Camus, the universe wasn't a place of divine plans. It was a silent, beautiful, and utterly indifferent reality. And at its center was the sun, a force of life that gave warmth and pleasure, but also a force of death that could parch the land, blind the eyes, and push a man to the breaking point. This is the philosophy he would explore, not through dense essays, but through the life of one unforgettable character. He sets his story in his homeland of Algiers, a city where the heat of the sun is a physical presence. It is a world lived through the senses, a place where the salt on the skin and the glare of the sky hold more reality than abstract concepts like love or sorrow. This setting is not merely a backdrop, it is the very fabric of the protagonist's consciousness, the source of his greatest pleasures, and the catalyst for his ultimate downfall. The novel presents a world stripped of comforting illusions, asking us to confront the unsettling possibility that our rituals, our systems of justice, and our belief in a rational universe are just stories we tell ourselves to keep the silence at bay. And in following the journey of this strange man, we are forced to see the performance in our own lives and what might happen if we, too, decided to stop pretending. We meet this strange man, Mersault, as he receives a telegram about his mother's death. His reaction, or lack thereof, is our first clue that he operates by a different set of rules. He seems more concerned with the logistics, borrowing a black tie and armband from his friend Emmanuel, enduring the long and uncomfortable bus ride, than with the fact of his mother's passing. At the home for the aged in Marengo, his interactions are clinical and observational. He notes the brightness of the mortuary, the politeness of the director, and the physical appearance of the nurse. The sun is already at work, its light flooding the whitewashed walls, making the room feel sterile and hot. When the director asks if he wishes to see his mother one last time, he declines. To an outside observer, this is the behavior of a cold, unfeeling son. To Mersault, it is simply the truth of his experience. At the vigil, as his mother's friends weep around him, he feels nothing but tiredness and the oppressive heat. He smokes a cigarette, drinks a coffee, and dozes off. He is not cruel, he is simply honest. He sees no reason to perform a grief he does not feel. His life in Algiers is one of simple, physical pleasures. The day after the funeral, he wakes up, feels the joy of a weekend ahead, and decides to go for a swim. In the cool water, he and his city find a temporary escape from the sun's oppressive glare, a moment of pure physical joy. There, he runs into Marie Cardona, a former co-worker from his office. Their interaction is immediate and physical. They swim, laugh, and float, their bodies enjoying the immediate sensations of the sun and the sea. That evening, they go to see a comedy starring Fernandel and then spend the night together. This sequence of events, a swim and a date the day after his mother's burial, would later become the cornerstone of the prosecution's case against him, damning evidence of his moral vacancy. But for Meursault, there is no contradiction. His mother is dead, but he is alive. The world continues, the sun still shines, and Marie is beautiful. He lives in a state of radical presence. When Marie asks if he loves her, he replies that the question doesn't mean anything, but that he probably doesn't. He agrees to marry her simply because she wants to, and it requires no real effort or change on his part. He is a passive observer of his own life. This passivity draws him into the lives of his neighbors, providing a fuller picture of his detached nature. There is old Salamano, who lives with a mangy dog he constantly abuses, yet deeply loves. Meursault watches their strange, codependent relationship with mild curiosity, offering a few words of advice when the dog runs away but feeling no deep emotional investment. His other neighbor is Raymond Sintes, a man of intense, violent emotions who works as a warehouse guard and is rumored to be a pimp. Raymond, convinced his mistress is cheating on him, asks Meursault to write a letter to lure her back so he can punish her. Meursault agrees, not out of malice or loyalty, but because, as he says, he didn't have any reason not to. He is an empty vessel, and Raymond's drama fills his otherwise uneventful days. This act of detached compliance sets in motion the chain of events that will lead to his downfall. He listens impassively to Raymond beat the woman. He testifies to the police on Raymond's behalf without any concern for the truth, and he becomes entangled in a conflict that is not his own. Through it all, Meursault remains an observer, watching the drama unfold as if it were a film. If you are finding this exploration of classic literature compelling, consider subscribing to the channel. We post new analyses every week, diving deep into the books that have shaped our world. The world of the novel is one of tangible reality, and Meursault is its ultimate citizen. He never thinks about the past or the future, his consciousness filled only with the immediate inputs from his senses. He is a man profoundly at home in his own body, but an alien in the world of human emotion and social convention. This unwavering commitment to his own physical truth, this refusal to lie or to perform, is what makes him a stranger. It is also what makes him a threat. And as he stands on the cusp of a violent confrontation, his tranquil existence is about to be shattered by the blinding glare of the Algerian Sunday. The sun is no longer just a backdrop, it becomes a malevolent force, an antagonist pressing down with a physical weight. The stage for the novel's climax is a beach house owned by Masson, a friend of Raymond's. The day begins simply enough, with a pleasant bus ride, a warm welcome, and a swim. Meursault, Marie, and Raymond enjoy the simple pleasures of the water and the Sunday, but an undercurrent of tension runs beneath the placid surface. During a walk along the beach, Meursault, Raymond, and Masson encounter a group of Arabs, one of whom is the brother of Raymond's spurned mistress. A fight breaks out, initiated by Raymond's taunts. It is swift and brutal. Raymond is slashed with a knife on his arm and mouth. The conflict is brief but decisive, leaving a residue of anger and humiliation hanging in the shimmering air. They retreat to the bungalow. Raymond is treated for his wounds, and the immediate danger seems to have passed. But the heat of the day and the heat of the conflict have created an oppressive atmosphere. Later, against Meursault's advice, Raymond walks back down to the beach, a revolver now in his pocket, with Meursault following out of a sense of passive obligation. They find the two Arabs again, lying in the cool shade of a rock, playing a tune on a small reed flute. The serene image is a stark contrast to the tension in the air. For a long moment, nothing happens. The two groups stare at each other under the crushing weight of the midday Sunday. The Arabs retreat, and it seems, once again, that the violence has ended. Raymond is satisfied, but as they walk back, Meursault is overwhelmed by the heat. He tells Raymond he is not returning to the bungalow just yet. He is not driven by anger or a desire for revenge. He is simply pulled by the crushing heat, seeking the relief of the cool spring that he knows is behind the large rock. It is a fateful, physical impulse. The sun is now described as an oppressive, almost liquid force, making the sand feel like it is burning through the soles of his shoes. Camus writes, "The whole beach, throbbing in the sun, was pressing on my back. It is a world on the verge of combustion. As Meursault approaches the spring, he sees that one of the Arabs, the man who cut Raymond, has returned. The man is alone, lying on his back, the sun glinting off something in his hand. For Meursault, in that moment, the Arab is not an enemy or a person, he is just an obstacle, a dark shape blocking the cool relief of the shade and the murmur of the spring. The confrontation is almost silent, a collision of physical forces rather than human wills. The Arab shows his knife, and the light reflecting from the steel blade is described as a long, searing blade that stabs at Meursault's eyes, lancing his eyelashes and digging into his stinging eyeballs. This flash of light, combined with the sweat and sun burning his vision, triggers something in him. He says his whole being tensed up, his hand tightened on the revolver in his pocket. The trigger gives way. The sound of the gunshot is loud and sharp, but also, as he describes it, short and deafening. That single shot is the turning point of his entire life. It is not a moment of conscious decision. It is a physical reaction, an involuntary spasm against the overwhelming assault of the Sunday. The meaninglessness of the act is what makes it so terrifying. There is no motive in the traditional sense, no greed, no jealousy, no political cause. There is only the sun, the sand, and a body reacting to unbearable physical pressure. But Meursault does not stop at one shot. After a brief pause, he fires 4 more times into the motionless body. This second act is even more perplexing than the first. It is deliberate, methodical, and utterly without reason. He later describes it as being like 4 quick knocks on the door of unhappiness. It is the punctuation mark on a senseless act, an affirmation of the absurd. With those 5 shots, Meursault shatters the tranquility of his life and crosses a threshold from which there is no return. He has committed an act that society cannot ignore or forgive, and now he, a man who has lived his life without judgment, will be subjected to the full, relentless force of a system that demands explanations where none exist. Meursault is arrested for murder, but it soon becomes clear he is not on trial for killing a man. He is on trial for being socially unacceptable. The courtroom becomes a stage for a trial by outrage, a phenomenon we know all too well today. From his initial interrogations with the examining magistrate, who brandishes a crucifix and calls it his only truth, Meursault finds himself in a foreign world. The trial becomes a war between 2 symbols, the crucifix, representing a world of divine meaning and moral rules, and Meursault himself, representing the silent, physical world that operates without them. He cannot comprehend why his beliefs, or lack thereof, are relevant to his case. He feels, he says, that he is an outsider, struggling to understand the bizarre rituals and inflated language of a world he has never cared to join. The trial itself unfolds like a surreal play in which Meursault is the lead subject, but not the lead character. The prosecutor does not focus on the events of the beach. Instead, he constructs a public narrative of a cold, calculating, and soulless man, using Meursault's past behavior as evidence of his monstrous character. He calls a series of witnesses, each testimony a brushstroke in this damning portrait. The director and caretaker from the home testify that Meursault showed no grief, smoked cigarettes, and drank coffee. Celeste, the restaurant owner, tries to defend him, saying it was just bad luck, but his simple words are no match for the court's sophisticated narrative. Marie is forced to recount how their relationship began the day after the funeral, a fact that causes a stir of revulsion in the courtroom. Raymond's testimony about the letter only serves to paint Meursault as a willing accomplice in a sordid, immoral affair. His honesty is systematically twisted into proof of premeditation and moral depravity. The prosecutor declares that Meursault has no place in a society whose most essential rules he ignores, and, in a moment of stunning rhetorical flourish, claims that he is morally guilty of his mother's death, the actual murder of the Arab, who remains nameless throughout the entire trial, becomes almost an afterthought. The victim is erased, his death serving only as the pretext for judging and condemning Meursault's fundamental nature as an outsider. What do you think of this kind of justice? Is the courtroom a place for truth, or for telling the most convincing story? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Meursault's own lawyer, a well-meaning but conventional man, is equally useless. He urges Meursault to play the game, to say that he held back his tears at the funeral, to express remorse, but Meursault refuses. He cannot lie about what he felt or what he did not feel. When the judge asks him directly why he killed the Arab, Meursault, searching for an honest answer, can only say it was because of the Sunday. The courtroom erupts in laughter. His simple physical truth is incomprehensible to them. When asked if he regrets his crime, he admits, with his typical frustrating honesty, that he feels more annoyance than real regret. This refusal to perform the expected emotions seals his fate. The court is a machine designed to process and categorize human behavior, and Meursault is an anomaly it cannot compute. Because he will not provide them with a motive they can understand, they must invent one for him. They decide he is a monster because that is a more comforting explanation than the alternative, that a man might kill another for no reason at all. This is a trial by public opinion, and Meursault is condemned long before the verdict is read, not because of the 5 bullets he fired on a beach, but because his entire life is a quiet rebellion against the fictions society requires its members to uphold. The guillotine awaits. In his final days, stripped of everything, including the son he so loved, Meursault is offered one last chance at salvation from the prison chaplain. But instead of providing comfort, the conversation ignites a rage that leads to a profound and liberating clarity. The guilty verdict is delivered with a sense of inevitability. Meursault is sentenced to be executed in a public square. In his cell, he confronts the concrete reality of his own death. The abstract idea of an appeal is replaced by the visceral reality of the dawn, the walk to the scaffold, and the fall of the blade. He thinks about the mechanics of the guillotine, the certainty of its outcome, and the one thing he has in common with every other living person, the inevitability of death. He realizes that it doesn't matter if one dies at 30 or at 70, since in either case, the world will go on just the same. His time in prison has stripped him down to the essentials. He has learned to kill time by recalling the tiniest details of his old apartment, a mental exercise that opens up new depths of memory and consciousness. He has come to understand that even a single day of life contains enough memories to sustain a person for 100 years in prison. This quiet contemplation is shattered by the arrival of the chaplain, who insists on trying to save Meursault's soul. Meursault has repeatedly refused to see him, but the priest enters anyway, driven by a professional duty to offer solace. He speaks of God, of the afterlife, and of repentance, but his words are meaningless to Meursault. He sees the priest not as a man of faith, but as a man who is already dead, living a life based on abstract hopes rather than concrete reality. The chaplain, unable to accept Meursault's calm indifference, becomes increasingly agitated, telling him that his heart is blind and that every man, in his darkest hour, wishes for a divine face. This accusation finally breaks through Meursault's passivity. For the first time in the novel, he erupts with emotion. He grabs the chaplain by the collar of his cassock and, in a torrent of rage and frustration, screams out the core tenets of his own philosophy. He yells that he is right, that he has always been right. He is sure of his life and of his impending death, and nothing else matters. The chaplain's certainties about God are worth no more than a woman's hair. He has lived his life in one way, and he could have lived it in any other way. It makes no difference. In this explosive confrontation, Meursault purges himself of the last vestiges of hope, that insidious illusion that Camus believed was the ultimate trap. By staring directly into the abyss of his own mortality and the universe's indifference, he finds a strange and unexpected peace. After the guards take the chaplain away, Meursault is left alone, drained and calm. Sleep overcomes him, and when he wakes, he looks out the window at the stars and smells the scents of the night, the earth, and the salt. And for the first time, he feels a profound connection to the world. He writes that, opening myself to the gentle indifference of the world, I found that I had been happy, and that I was happy still. This is his final revelation. Freedom and happiness are not found by seeking meaning or divine purpose, but by accepting life as it is finite, meaningless, and beautiful in its indifference. He feels such a brother to the silent universe that he hopes for a crowd of hateful spectators at his execution, as their scorn would be the final confirmation that he has lived and died in defiance of their illusions. An authentic man in an artificial world. If you found this exploration of Camus' masterpiece insightful, consider sharing it with a friend who appreciates great literature and philosophy. He found freedom by admitting nothing matters. And the terrifying question Camus leaves us with is this: in a world that demands we perform, what would you be willing to lose, just to tell the truth? Thank you for joining us for this exploration of the stranger. If you enjoyed this analysis and want to see more deep dives into the classics, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We value your perspective, so leave a comment below and let us know which great book you'd like us to explain next.